What is going on, everybody? Zach back here with another episode of Clutch Crew Sports. And here in today's episode, we talked about the AFC a lot in our last week's episode. Here, we've got you NFC fans. We're going to talk all about the potential NFC playoff teams, who we think will be the best among that group. Another week of the lock board, and we're previewing the NBA season. So we're going to preview the Eastern Conference and our picks for MVP. And hopefully you guys like those picks and enjoy our commentary. Now let me introduce you to the rest of the crew.
What is going on, guys? It is Connor, the co-host with the most, and not the best football week for me this week. The Steelers finally lost a game, but still 11-1, so I still can't complain too much. And I did finally have a decent week in the lock board, but I'm still not happy with my with what happened this week. Probably talk about that later, but I'm excited to talk about the NFC and share my NBA predictions.
And what is going on, y'all? Eric here, ranting co-host here. Could rant again about my Jags. I won't, but I mean, could you find
me too, bud? Me too.
Could you find a worse way to lose a game? I mean, gee. Well, the Jets did worse.
Yeah.
We weren't too much better though. But yeah, just like Connor, man, I'm excited to talk some more football. Getting ready for the next NBA season. We're excited to bring you this content, guys. Hope you enjoy it.
How's it going, guys? It's Nate here. I only got one pick right in the lock board this week, but the pick was that my Pats would beat the Chargers, which did happen. So can't really complain about the weekend overall. Yeah, like the guys said, I'm looking forward to talking about what's going to go on in the NFC, and I'll actually be participating in the basketball segment a little bit this week, so that'll be pretty fun.
Woo!
So yeah, looking forward to getting into
it. All right. So like always, we'll start out with Around the Shield, and I've pre-alluded this is going to be about the NFC, but I'll let Connor explain what all this is going to be about, and then we'll get started.
Yeah. So last week we talked about AFC wild card, who we think is going to make the wild card. We took 6 teams and each decided whether they were in or out. This is going to be a little different. This is going to be kind of similar to what we did with the NFC East a couple of weeks ago, where we're going to take the top 8 teams in the NFC right now. So we got the 4 division winners, or the 4 division leaders, plus the actually, I just thought about one thing before we do this, that the Giant, I feel like we should probably
they have
talk
the tiebreaker.
They do have the tiebreaker? Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say we should talk about Washington, but anyway, yeah, so we got the 4 division leaders and the 3 wild cards plus the first team out. And just like for the NFC East, I liked this idea when we did it, that we each took a random team. Because I was talking with Zach and I was like, well, maybe we should do random so that like I'm not talking about the Saints for the 500th time and Zach's not talking about the Bucks for the 500th time. So we each got 2 random teams, and we're going to start with Zach and give his case as to why the Los Angeles Rams are going to be the top team in the NFC.
Yeah, so I've got the Rams as my random generated pick here. Not too thrilled about it. I'm not going to be rooting for the Rams this year with the draft pick and all, but I do actually, despite my bias, I do think the Rams have a very good shot at winning the NFC and potentially could be the favorites because just how strong their defense is. You say it, you hear it every year, defense wins championships. And I feel like with this NFC bunch, there's no real consistent team that's far and above better than anybody else. And the Rams have a great defense with Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey. He absolutely shut down DeAndre Hopkins this past week. Saw a lot of memes on Twitter about him being his child and everything. But you got Ramsey on the outside. You got Aaron Donald in the middle. The rest of their defense has some players too. And on offense, they're doing okay. They're not the best team in this NFC offensively, but with their defense and with Sean McVay, I feel like Sean McVay is really utilizing Jared Goff to the best of his abilities, and we saw him a couple of years ago make the Super Bowl, so why not do it again? I think the Rams will do it. Eric, I'll pass it off to you and let you talk about your adopted team this season.
Eric got lucky that he got to talk about this team.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because Connor was like, well, by doing it random, we won't talk about the same team for the 500th time. But once again, I have been assigned the New York Football Giants. Yeah, Susan's still mad at me about that. So if we ever do this again, if you could not give me a NFC East team other than the Cowboys or something, that would be good. But no, I mean, it's crazy because ever since we did that NFC East episode, the Giants have actually been playing pretty well. I mean, they're not dominating games or anything like that, but ever since that near win against the Cowboys when Dak went out, they're let's see, it looks like they're actually 5-2 since then. So obviously the beginning of the season wasn't so great for them, but obviously looking at their record over the last few games, they're doing pretty well. And I felt like their chances of even making the playoffs were going to be over after Daniel Jones went down last week when they just kind of barely skated by against the Bengals. But then they come out and their defense shuts down the Seahawks and they beat them 17-12. And they're definitely a very surprising team on this list. I would not have expected them to be here at this point in the season. And obviously what's a good advantage for them going forward is if they do manage to hold off Washington in the East or anybody else that might try to come up, then they will get a home game for the first round of the playoffs, which is huge because it's a lot better for them if they play a home against a team such as maybe Tampa or Seattle or somebody like that, as opposed to having to go to their stadium instead. So if they could somehow get in and maybe win that first game at home, they've already got a lot of momentum right now. So, I'm definitely not saying it's going to happen, but who knows, man? And so I'll let Connor talk about his first team now.
Yeah, so I've been assigned the Green Bay Packers, and pretty much in stark contrast to the Rams, like Zach was talking about. Zach was saying that the Rams have a great defense. The Packers are the opposite. They have a great offense. Aaron Rodgers is challenging Patrick Mahomes for the MVP right now, especially after this last week. A pretty kind of up and down game for Mahomes, but a really solid game for Rodgers. I think it's very up in the air right now. Mahomes is definitely still the front runner, but Rodgers is definitely making his case for the MVP. And I think one thing that's really underrated about Green Bay's offense is people don't really talk about how good Aaron Jones is. I feel like a lot of people kind of see him as he's just this he gets all these fantasy points because all he does is Aaron Rodgers will take him down the field and then Jones gets a 1-yard run for a touchdown and he gets 3 of those every game. So that's why he gets so many points. But I think Aaron Jones is severely underrated as a running back. And also he's a really good receiver. And the Packers have another running back in Jamal Williams who, he's not going to be your every down back, but he's also a very good receiving back. So it gives Aaron Rodgers, he's kind of using his running backs when a very big lack of receiver talent outside of Devontae Adams. He's using his running backs, and he's using Robert Tonyan a lot in the passing game too. So some unlikely people have emerged for the Packers as their top weapons. Definitely got some issues on the defensive side, but the biggest advantage that the Packers have right now is that it's likely that if they can just keep up what they're doing, it's likely that they're going to at least get the 2 seed with all the turmoil that's going on in the NFC West. Who knows who's going to emerge from that and if one of them is going to even challenge for the 2 seed. But the Packers are likely going to be at the 2, maybe the 1 if the Saints start to lose a couple games. So at least they'll have home games throughout the playoffs unless they play the Saints. So, and also, like I said, you can't go wrong with having Aaron Rodgers on your team. It's kind of like when with the Patriots with Tom Brady or the Saints with Drew Brees a couple of years ago. Maybe not this season, but a couple of years ago. You just can't go wrong with Aaron Rodgers. So I'll let Nate talk about the New Orleans Saints.
Right. Yeah. Like what Connor just touched on. The biggest issue I would say for the Saints is obviously their quarterback situation. Supposedly Drew Brees could come back as early as week 14. They're saying. I don't know with that kind of severe rib injury if that's going to happen or if Taysom Hill is going to have to be playing in the playoffs. But either way, I think each of those guys, Drew Brees is still, obviously very sharp, but his arm strength is not where it used to be, and I think both quarterbacks are kind of a limitation on this team right now. But other than that, I feel like the Saints have probably one of the top, two or three like overall rosters. I would say offense, defense. They have, enough solid guys at each position to kind of carry. You saw what they did with Taysom Hill the last couple weeks. They've been limited as far as throwing the ball, but they're still getting by and getting wins. So as of right now, I wouldn't say that they're my top pick to win the Super Bowl or anything like that. But if they can get they'll make it into the playoffs, and if they can whoever's at quarterback, if they can keep Alvin Kamara going, have the defense keep making plays, I think they can definitely win a game or two. They've definitely had some struggles the past few postseasons, mostly to the Vikings, but if they don't have to match up with the Vikings the first round, they might be able to do some damage this year. So I'll hand it back off to Zach if he wants to talk about.
Ironically,
I
the
just gotta
Vikings.
talk about the
Yeah,
Vikings.
the Vikings.
Thanks for setting me up with that, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I got the Vikings as this is our second round of wild card / bubble teams. They currently, I think, have the 7th seed, which is still weird to say, the 7th seed being a playoff seed. But here's the thing with the Vikings is right now they wouldn't scare me in the playoffs, but if they do actually make the playoffs, similarly to what Eric was saying, they're going to be coming in on quite a big win streak, and they already have a win streak going on, and they play a lot of tough teams to end the season. So teams like the Buccaneers, the Saints also, I think, are another one of those teams. So they have a lot of games that are going to be tough on their remaining schedule, but assuming they win that, this is going to be a scary team to face. And like last year, Kirk Cousins pulled an upset. I could see them pulling an upset or two in this NFC, which is so wide open. And really, they know their offense. Run through Dalvin Cook. They still fed him the ball 30 times last week, even though he wasn't running great. And Justin Jefferson's emerged as a number 1 wide receiver. He might replace. He might even be more important right now than Stephon Diggs. So you've got
Thielen
or Thielen, yeah. Yeah. So Thielen, he's a good number 2, I think, but Jefferson's turning into their best receiver, and they've got Dalvin Cook. It's in the trenches, which scares me the most with the Vikings, but they definitely have big play potential. We'll see what happens, but don't count them out yet. Now let's hear Eric talk about the Cardinals.
Yeah, I mean, the Cardinals are definitely right now probably in the worst situation out of these teams. I mean, the main thing for them that they're going to need to do to get back into this is obviously they just got to figure out what's going wrong, get it turned around and start winning some more games, because if it weren't for that ridiculous Hail Mary by DeAndre Hopkins, they'd be on a 5-game losing streak right now, I believe. So that's obviously not good. And I'm not sure what it is, because they've had times this season, they've had moments this season where they've looked like they could be a top tier team and challenge for the Super Bowl. And then they've had other moments where they look like they don't belong. So I have a hard time figuring out this Cardinals team, but the main thing for them is just their defense is going to have to start playing better. You can't be giving up the amount of points they've given up in some of these games, and Kyler Murray in the offense just needs to be more consistent as well. But I don't have too much faith in the Cardinals right now, but they do have a couple of NFC East games coming up, so maybe if they can win those, get back on track, finish the season strong, maybe they could do something.
Yeah, so this is going to be an interesting spot for me talking about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, since I've been the one going against them most of the season.
I'm excited for this.
But I will make my case for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Definitely the biggest advantage the Buccaneers have is their defense. I mean, this is a top 3 defense. It's pretty much been all season between them and the Steelers, like who's the top defense in the NFL right now. They get to the quarterback on a consistent basis. They force bad throws. maybe they don't get the takeaways that some of the other teams do, but they definitely, just getting to the quarterback and forcing those bad throws and at least forcing incompletions is what they do so well. And then on offense, I mean, you still can't. I mean, Antonio Brown has been a bit surprising that he's actually been. Maybe surprising that he hasn't caused a lot of drama. He's just kind of been sitting there. He's been consistent. He gets his catches. He gets, he does some stuff to help them out. And who knows? Maybe he's going to be the hero for them in the playoffs. But obviously, they still have Mike Evans. They still have Chris Godwin. Tom Brady and Gronk still have as strong a connection as ever. I mean, a lot of people, myself included, were thinking that Gronk was just here to block when he was coming back to the Buccaneers. But Gronk has turned into a top target for Tom Brady at this moment. And I think the biggest key for the Buccaneers going forward is obviously the division it's not out of reach yet, but with the way the Saints have been playing, it's pretty likely that they're going to end up being the 5 seed or the 6 seed. So they're going to have to deal with a lot of road games going forward in the playoffs. But I think they need to get Ronald Jones the ball more. I know Bruce Arians has talked about that, when the ball is in Rojo's hands, good things happen. And because it seems like to me, he's trying too much to make it work with this committee with Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette. And I feel like they just need to pick one and stick with one because it seems like the committee's not working very well. And from what I've seen, the most part, Leonard Fournette seems to be a better pass catching back, but Ronald Jones seems to be better in the actual run game. So I think they just need, and Arian says he really likes Rojo. So I think they just need to nail it down that Rojo's the number 1 back, get him the ball more often, and then this offense can stop relying so much on Tom Brady, because we've seen this season that Brady, he's regressed for sure this season, so he's not the guy he used to be. So if they can get that run game going, then the Buccaneers, they're definitely probably in the best position out of any of the wild card teams right now, in my opinion, to go all the way to the Super Bowl. So I'll let Nate finish up with the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, so this is kind of a tricky one for me. Kind of get a handle on this team. Obviously, they look really good at times this season, but then we saw yesterday they lost to the Giants, who they have a good defense, but to only put up, a few points versus them and really just kind of looked lost at times out there. It was kind of a bad sign for me. So I think obviously they're in the lead of the division. I think they're going to hold on because I don't see
the Rams are in first
place. Yeah, that's right. Sorry.
It's close. It's close.
Yeah, it's close. But, I mean, they're in a decent spot. They have one more game versus the Rams, and they could potentially, come away with a division lead. But that's kind of up in the air right now. I think, obviously, with Russell Wilson being the quarterback, I'm a big fan of his. I've talked about him a lot before. And I think with him, they can, anything is possible and they're out of a game. But I think there's just not enough talent around him at this point. That obviously DK Metcalf is great, but I think there's a lot of, I guess they're kind of exposed on Sunday, and I'm not super confident in them going forward. I think they'll definitely make the playoffs. I think because they are 8-4, and I don't see the Cardinals coming up to pass them at any point. So I think they'll make it in, but I won't be surprised if they had a first round exit. They're gonna have to likely go on the road unless they pass the Rams and take the lead there. So they're going to have to go on the road against a tough team like maybe someone like Green Bay or New Orleans. And I'm not totally sure if Russ is going to be able to get it done this year. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, so really the general consensus theme, I think, from listening to all 8 pitches here is none of us slammed our fists on the table being like, they're going to win the NFC. This really could be any of these 8 teams potentially winning it. Some more likely than others.
This definitely isn't a situation like with the Chiefs in the AFC right now, where it's
right.
The Chiefs are pretty much the consensus number 1. There is no consensus number 1 here.
Yeah. And, the way the Giants keep doing after Eric talks about them, I would not count the Giants out as crazy as that sounds.
Giants fans, if y'all somehow win the Super Bowl this year, you're welcome.
Eric is taking all the credit. You should pay him millions of dollars in royalties.
I'll set up a GoFundMe for myself or something. Or get cash out. You can hook me up.
All right, yeah. So moving on now to the lock board. We heard Connor talk about his first place week. So I always let the winner talk about their week, but I know this time the winner is not going to be too happy. But Connor, share how your picks went this week.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess definitely a bit of a disappointing week for me in the fact that, like, because I did, I guess I'll start off with the good. The good was Indiana did beat Wisconsin. Even with the Indiana quarterback being hurt, I thought that spread of like 13, by the time we got to the game, it was like 13 and a half. And I thought that was just absurd. I was like, Indiana's like, obviously quarterback's the most important, but Indiana didn't get to be almost beating Ohio State just because of their quarterback. So, and I know Zach feels very strongly that Wisconsin's very overrated. So I was pretty happy about that. But definitely in the ones I got wrong, and I guess I'll talk about Zach's pick with the Lions over the Bears. It just felt like I couldn't catch a break this week. Like Arkansas was dominating the game over Missouri, and then they ended up like they were up 14-0 in the or not 14-0. They were up by 14 in the fourth quarter, and then Missouri came back and took the lead. Arkansas did go down and managed to get a touchdown and the 2-point conversion to take a 1-point lead, and then Missouri kicked a game-winning field goal with like almost no time left, so that sucked. Then the Jaguars were ahead of the Vikings at one point, and then the Jaguars kind of just threw it away. They lost in overtime, and then same with the Bears. Like they were up 14-0. They were up 14 point. Why do I keep saying 14-0? Maybe I'm stuck on the fact that the Steelers were up 14-0 on Washington earlier today. But the Bears were up by 14 points, and then the Lions in just like the last 3 minutes of the game managed to like put a couple drives together, and then the Lions got a touchdown with like a minute left. So definitely could be a lot better for me this week if just a couple things had gone a different way. And also I'm upset because I only made up 1 point in the standings and now I'm drafting last. So
yeah,
probably the most upset first place winner of the year so far.
Yeah, and I do want to say for between all of us, we did get at least one pick right this week. So that hasn't happened.
Definitely a better week overall for us. We've been having a couple down weeks here. So
yeah, seriously. So let me review the standings real quickly. So this past week, Connor had 5 points. I only had 4. Like you said, the 1 point difference, and then Eric and Nate both had 3-pointers getting correct. So looking at the total standings now for the entire year, I'm still in first place with 58 points. Connor is 4 points behind me in second place. Eric still remains in third place with 42 points. And Nate is in fourth place, down 21 points to the leader. So that's where things stand right now. But we have another week, and we have a bonus round too. So you'll hear a bonus round of locks. We've decided that since a lot of these games get canceled, especially in college for COVID, that it's fair to have a fourth round to be used in case any games get canceled for COVID. So if any games get canceled, our fourth round locks will replace the game that got canceled. So that adds another dimension to this. You never know. Maybe you want to put a 5-pointer in there as a just in case, or go safe. What do you want to do with that? It's going to be interesting because they won't be counted unless they're needed to be counted. So, Eric, you by default get the first pick this week, which so you seem to be flipping back from first and last pick. So you got first this time though, which is good for this week.
I think I know where he's going too.
I don't know why every time I have a great week, I followed up with not a good week. But at least last time when I won, the following week I dropped a goose egg. So at least this time, I got a 3-pointer. But I think Connor almost had my pick right, but I'm actually going to take the football team to beat the 49ers.
Yeah, I was eyeing that one. San Francisco's 4.5-point favorites, but Washington on a bit of a win streak now.
I'm surprised the 49ers are favored in that, but so I'm going to take the football team. Sorry, Giants fans.
Okay, Nate, you've got the next pick in the first round.
Yes, I was hoping that was actually what I was looking at. I was hoping to use my my little Twitter meme again next week, but I think I am gonna stay with the NFL, and I'm gonna actually stay in the NFC East as well and go with New York Giants over Arizona Cardinals.
The New York Football Giants. Well, now they're going to lose because Eric didn't pick them. So
Yeah, sorry, Giants fans. You can blame me.
Okay. So now I've got the third pick. I'm gonna stay in the NFL like you guys, but I'm gonna go Steelers over Bills.
Zach stole my pick.
I know. Yeah. This is what you get, Connor, for picking last now.
Yeah, really. Well, not all hope is lost. There's another NFL pick that I am looking at here that I think I like a lot, and I'm going to take. I know they had a pretty very weird game, I guess, against the New York Jets this week, but I do like taking the Las Vegas Raiders over the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah. Okay. Raiders over Colts. Quick first round. Eric, you're back at the top of the second round. Where are you going to go?
All right. So since I'm behind, I really need to take a 5-pointer here, and there's not very many that I feel too confident in, but I'm going to get bold here and go over to college, and I'm going to take Illinois to beat Northwestern.
Dang.
Uh-oh.
Northwestern just seems very
you guys
overrated
have
to
all
me.
been I know. It's just funny. Like, you guys have all been picking all the ones I wanted. Like, sometimes I get some left over that I like.
That's what you get for sniping my picks. So
yeah, I guess. Everybody's getting sniped because Nate got sniped by Eric.
Yeah.
Okay, Nate, you've got the next pick, though. Go ahead. Snipe me again.
Hopefully not, but I think...
Actually, no, hopefully, yes.
Oh, yeah.
You want to snipe him, Nate. You want to snipe him.
Shoot, I think... what was I looking at here? I think I'm going to go with a little bit of an upset here. And take the Chargers over Atlanta.
Yeah.
Haven't been playing too good lately, but I think they're bound for a win. And
you never know with Atlanta. I'll say that.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, it was like this week. You know, I think Eric had a good analogy. We were talking in the chat about like their 2 games against the Saints. It's like, you know, this game against the Saints that actually looked like they could win, but the other game against the Saints, like Matt Ryan couldn't even put on his pants properly in that game.
Yeah.
So
yeah, he forgot how to tie his cleats or something. I don't know what he did, but anyway.
Yeah. All right. So things are looking a lot more thin than they did at the start of the draft, but I'm going to go with a 5-pointer here, and I'm going to take the Lions to beat the Packers.
Zach is really set on picking someone over the Packers.
I know. Hey, the Lions, they did me well last week, so rewarding them with a potential 5-pointer. Come on, Lions.
Yeah, really. Well, you know, you're not going to see me picking the Jaguars over the Titans this time because the Jaguars kind of shafted me last week. So they have used up my my patience. So
look, they tried, man. Okay,
they did try. They did try. I'll give them credit for that. It was definitely that was definitely my least confident pick, and they definitely made a game out of it. So, but I am going to go over to college, and this probably shouldn't come as a surprise. They did kind of burn me the last time I picked them, but they're playing a worse team this time. So I'm going to take the North Carolina Tar Heels over the Miami Hurricanes.
I figured you would do that. I didn't want to be mean and take another one of your favorite teams. I couldn't. I knew I couldn't do that.
I saw on the share screen the icon moved over to that game before Connor said it.
Oh, so you saw Eric?
Yeah, I was like, Zach knows what he's doing.
I didn't want to be that mean.
Don't want to be that guy.
No, I'm not going to do that. Eric, you've got the.
For my final pick before the wild card round, I am going to go to college again, but a 3-pointer this time, and I'm going to take the Washington Huskies to beat the Oregon Ducks.
Eric picking lots of Washington teams.
Yeah.
It sounded weird when you said Washington Huskies. I was like, wow, I'm just so used to Washington football team, you know.
Yeah.
All All right, Nate, you've got the next pick here before the wild card round.
All right, so yeah, I definitely want to take a college one this time. I think trying to find a 5.1 because obviously I got some ground to cover in the last couple weeks, but these are all kind of difficult matchups. But yeah, actually, I'm just gonna stick with a 3-pointer. I'm gonna take Wisconsin over Iowa. See if that's
All right.
pretty
I was
close.
wondering,
I
I
could
was,
kind of
I was
swing
wondering
either
if you were
way.
going to take UCLA over USC, but then I thought you probably wouldn't do that after how badly Washington State got beat last
Oh,
week.
yeah. I got burnt the last time I picked against USC.
Yeah. All right. So I've got the next pick here. I'm gonna do a 1-pointer. I'm gonna take Florida to beat LSU. I'm not really seeing that many great options left on my board, so I'm just gonna do the safe thing and try and get 1 point.
Well, I'm definitely going to go in the opposite direction. This is probably, I know my, excuse me, I know my Jaguars over Vikings pick last week was pretty bold, but this might be one of my boldest predictions yet this year. I'm going to take the Miami Dolphins to beat the Kansas City Chiefs.
Okay, not where I thought you were going.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I
Jags
thought you
or
were taking
Titans.
the Jets.
I thought you were gonna pick some team from New York that wears green.
Yeah.
No, I definitely not doing that.
Yeah, I could see Miami winning that. That could be a 5-pointer there. Okay, so now we're getting in uncharted territories with this wild card round. These picks may not be used, but they might if a game gets canceled. So we'll see what happens. But Eric, you get the first choice from this new round.
Okay, so yeah, unfortunately, all of the picks I was really looking at are gone. So I think what I'm going to do is just take a safe pick and do a 1-pointer here and go with one of my 2 survival picks in Yahoo, and I'm going to take the Seahawks to beat the Jets.
Yep. All right. So we'll see if that comes into play. Nate, you've got the next wild card pick.
All right, so it's kind of more likely that my college game's gonna get canceled, so I will make up from that side of the board, and I'm gonna go with Navy over Army with the midshipmen.
Yeah.
They have the cooler helmets this week.
Yeah, I feel like Nate's had some really bad luck with college games getting canceled this year.
How many college games did you pick this week, Nate?
Only one.
Okay, only one.
Just one.
It probably will
Yeah.
be canceled.
The way my luck's gone.
Eric's the only one with 2.
Oh boy. Okay, so I've got the next one here. I'm a little surprised Nate didn't pick this. I thought about it in the earlier rounds, but since it's still here, I'm going to do it. I'm going to take the Patriots to beat the Rams. Can't go wrong with a team that won like 45-0 last week against an LA team. They get another LA team now, so we'll see.
Yeah. All right, where do I want to go with this? I think I want to stick with the NFL here because just these college games are not appealing to me, and I seem to have had a pretty bad track record with college games in the past, even though this might not come into play. But I think I am actually going to go with the Minnesota Vikings over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
All right. Vikings to beat the Bucks there. We'll see if that happens. But yeah, that's going to be it for the lock board this week. Total of 16 locks this week as opposed to the usual 12. So
bonus.
Yep. And we'll be doing this from now on for the rest of season 2. So this isn't just like a 1-week thing. This will be the norm moving forward. But yeah, that's the lock board this week, and we'll move now to Around the Hoop and talk about some NBA. So like I said at the start of the episode, this is going to be essentially half of our season preview. We're going to be focusing on the Eastern Conference this episode. Next episode, we'll look at the Western Conference. And also on this episode, we'll make our predictions for MVP for the season. That's obviously a big deal. And then next week, we will cover our thoughts for the NBA Finals. So that's what's in store for Around the Shield the next couple weeks. And then after that, we'll see what we do with this, but right now, I've got 3 storylines up that I want to talk about with you guys, and then we'll get to our conference picks. So I'll start with the first storyline, and the storyline we talked about them last year a lot. They burned me and Eric and Nate. The Philadelphia
Not me.
76ers. Yeah. Connor was smart about the 76ers, not smart about another team, but the 76ers were even worse. Well, to be fair, the 76ers were even worse than the Bucks were. So,
I thought you were referring to my Falcons Super Bowl pick last year.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was staying with the sport basketball, but yeah, the Falcons, they won that award, the bad award there. But Philly, I do think it's going to be different this season. They finally are getting rid of Brett Brown, which I know. I mean, Philly fans are always, so calling for everybody to get fired and lose their job and everything, but they were rightfully on that train with Brett Brown because he lasted way too long there. This is the whole reason too why I'm not a fan of tanking is because it's not a guarantee. They had some seasons where they won like 12 games, and it was trust the process, and now look at them now. Are they still trusting the process? I don't think so. I actually picked the 76ers to finish 4th in the Atlantic Division, and the Atlantic Division is the toughest in basketball, I think, but I still think they're going to finish 4th in that division, and in the playoffs, I see them being like a 6 to 8 seed and losing the first round, but I think the problem is going to be Ben Simmons and Embiid. I wouldn't be shocked if one of them gets traded at the trade deadline. And honestly, I think it'll be whichever one is not doing well this season. It's just we've seen this for so many years now with Ben Simmons and Embiid. They were so hyped up, and I fell into that trap. And then they got Al Horford, and then I fell into that trap again. But Al Horford's gone now.
At the Thunder.
Yeah.
He's on my team.
And so while I think the 76ers did a good job by firing Brett Brown in the offseason, and they got Seth Curry, which I think is a really good move for them because they need shooters because we know Ben Simmons can't shoot and Embiid shoots too much, which is a problem. So the addition of Seth Curry, I think, will be big for him. And I think, Al Horford wasn't contributing much. They were able to unload his contract. And the 76ers, I see being in a couple years down as I know the fans aren't going to want to hear, but I do think it's going to be another like rebuild for them almost because with the way their team is constructed right now, they're not going to match up well against the Heat. They're not going to match up well. The Celtics beat them every playoffs. It seems like the Nets are going to be better, and all of our picks to win the East. The Bucks are still the Bucks. The Raptors are still good. It's just a really tough spot to be for the 76ers right now. So I do think fans are going to have to lower their expectations from a couple years ago and realize that this team is going to take a couple years to develop, and we'll see if that's what Doc does. They hired Doc Rivers as their head coach, obviously, which I think was a good signing, but I do think Doc Rivers gets a little hyped up as a head coach, honestly. He was coaching that great Boston team, and he coached with Orlando for a while, and obviously the Clippers latest, but he lasted so long with the Clippers, and they never won anything. They never even made it to the Western Conference Finals. So I think he gets hyped up a little bit too much considering recently he hasn't had any success with the Clippers. We'll see what happens, but I think I speak for everybody when I say the 76ers are going to be 4th in the Atlantic and down in the bottom tier of the Eastern playoff teams. And honestly, they might not even make the playoffs with how some of the bottom Eastern teams are starting to come on the up, like Atlanta, like Charlotte. Orlando's still there. Brooklyn's going to leapfrog them. So we'll see what happens. They could be a bubble playoff team, but the 76ers just gone from top to bottom. It seems like in 1 year. Now we're talking about a new coach and maybe one of their star players getting traded. So yeah, sorry 76ers fans, but you are a storyline in a bad way this year. Now,
I guess their goal is don't fall behind the Knicks now.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm gonna let we have a special guest on for this episode. We were able to get Giannis Antetokounmpo's agent on, so he's gonna join real quick and talk about what is gonna happen with Giannis and the Bucks and everything involved with the Greek Freak. So let me introduce you guys to Giannis's agent. He's also my cousin Connor and a co-host of the podcast. Connor, talk about your client.
Yes, my client, definitely. I still haven't received a paycheck from him, which is pretty interesting. I need to start getting those paychecks from him, especially since he's going to be making a lot of money here pretty soon. Need to start sending me those paychecks. Maybe I can not have to find a job here pretty soon after graduating college. I'll be set. Get me. But anyway, I think the thing about Giannis is that I feel like, there's not going to be much change with him this year. I mean, the Bucks there's going to be a little bit of change in personnel with the Bucks, like no more Eric Bledsoe, no more Wesley Matthews, but the Bucks are still the Bucks. I think DiVincenzo is going to take over the starting role at point guard now. And then obviously still have Middleton, still have Brook Lopez, and then Drew Holiday coming over to the team. So definitely pretty much still the same team. Giannis is still the same player. What he definitely needs to do is work on that free throw shooting. I've been discussing this with him a lot, that maybe less focus on the 3-point shot and more focus on the free throw shooting, because his free throw shooting has been god awful over the course of not just before the bubble, but even in the bubble. It seemed like it was even worse in the bubble once he got there. So I do still have the Milwaukee Bucks going to the Eastern Conference Finals this year, but I am going to stay true to my word and say that, I'm pretty sure I did say this on the podcast.
Yeah, you did.
That if the Bucks did not make it to the NBA Finals or win the NBA Finals, or at least make it, I was never going to pick them to make it again. So I'm going to stick with that. I'm not picking the Milwaukee Bucks to go to the NBA Finals this year, but I do still think they're going to go to the Eastern Conference Championship. I just think when I look around the East, I feel like the Heat kind of just had like a Cinderella run last year, and I don't feel like I think they're still going to be good, but I don't think they're going to go as far as they did. They were just playing really well in the bubble. The Celtics seem like they just, I don't know with them. They're the other team besides Brooklyn that I think has a chance to do some good in the Eastern Conference, but they kind of fell apart in that series against the Heat, so I don't know if I really trust the Celtics to go anywhere. So I'm expecting another good season for the Bucks. I'm expecting another MVP caliber season for Giannis Antetokounmpo. We're going to get to our MVP picks later, but I think it's going to be an MVP caliber, not an MVP winning season for Giannis Antetokounmpo, and I do agree that he's probably not going to stick with the Bucks after this season. I think all those rumors about him going to the Lakers was just a bunch of really, really, really fantasizing dreams coming from Los Angeles Lakers fans. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes. Obviously, he's been linked to the Heat. He's been linked to the Mavericks a couple times. So be interesting, but definitely he and I are going to have a lot to discuss this offseason, because he's not going to be signing that Supermax extension with the Bucks, it doesn't look like. So, yeah. Send me a check, Giannis. I'm still waiting. Yeah, totally. We're thinking of trading Gordon Hayward and Bismack Biyombo to the Bucks for Giannis.
There you go.
Okay, so for the next topic, Eric, this was a player that was his favorite player several years ago in the NBA. Now he's on another new uniform. Gonna see him for the first time in this uniform. So Eric, why don't you talk about the Brooklyn Nets and KD more specifically? What kind of expectations you have for him this year, and how him and Kyrie are going to work together?
Yeah, so for starters, I mean, as we already know, Connor is Giannis's agent, and it looked like there was a time a few years ago where, I might have lined up to be KD's agent, but then of course he went to the Warriors. I couldn't support that, so that never materialized. But yeah, so for my expectations for KD and the Nets, I have very high expectations for them. I think the Nets are going to be one of the best teams, as you'll see in my finals predictions. They're definitely going to be doing a lot of damage. And as for KD himself specifically, I don't think he's going to do quite as great as he was doing with the Warriors. My main concern is just with him coming off of that Achilles injury. I know he's had a lot of time now to recover from that, but most players, when they suffer Achilles tear injuries like that, most of the time they don't come back the same player. So I still think he's going to be really good, obviously. And even though I hated him for a while after he left the Thunder, I still respect his talents and I respect his abilities. So I'm going to be looking forward to watching him play again. As for the dynamic with Kyrie, that's probably what I'm most interested to see what happens, because ever since Kyrie got out of Cleveland, like, I don't know, man, he's just turned into a very odd personality, and it seems like a lot of people like haven't gotten along with him and everything like that. So I don't know if that's going to hinder the Nets, but at the same time, I've heard that Kyrie and KD are like best friends and all this stuff. So maybe it won't be a problem, but I still think the Nets are going to be a really good team. And what I also think could happen too, and obviously I don't want this to happen, but there's been a big rumor, of course, of James Harden wanting to get out of Houston and he wants to go team up with KD and everything. And the Rockets are saying that they're not going to trade him. They still want him and they still believe in him and all this stuff. But if the Rockets get off to a sluggish start this season, which I feel like is a very real possibility that could happen, I do wonder if the Rockets explore a trade and try to end up sending him to the Nets. And if that happens, then, God help the NBA, because I mean, as much as I can't stand James Harden, I mean, him, Kyrie, and KD on the same team is going to be a pretty lethal team if that happens. So I would not be surprised if that happens. So those are my expectations for the Nets going forward, and I'll let Zach take us into the next part of the show here.
Yeah, so we've been talking about the Nets, the Bucks, a couple teams, but I want to go through our Eastern Conference Finals predictions really quickly. So I'll say mine and then just give a quick reason why. So I've got the Nets winning the Eastern Conference, beating the Heat. I think the Heat make it back. Connor talked about a Cinderella run, but the way the Heat are built, I think it's for the long term. I don't think they're obviously the making the finals. I think that was a Cinderella thing, but they're very capable of making it back because they probably have to go through the Bucks and Celtics, which they've proven that they can beat. It's just when they run up against the Nets with KD and Kyrie and that supporting cast with Dinwiddie and LeVert, that's gonna be too much for them to handle. So I'll say like Nets in 5. But Jimmy Butler, I still have a ton of respect for him, and I think the rest of the young Heat will develop and be better in time as well. So that's my finals, Eastern Conference Finals preview. Eric, what about yours?
Yeah, so I'm like Zach in that I have the Nets taking the Eastern Conference. I didn't think to mention Dinwiddie and LeVert in my talk about the Nets, but Karis LeVert in the bubble last season was incredibly good. I mean, so even if the Nets don't trade for James Harden, they still already have a really great team. So I'm a big fan of LeVert after this most recent season, and so I think the Nets are going to take it. For my opponent against them, though, I am different than Zach. I do have the Celtics making it this time. Um, I feel like the Celtics are going to get better. I feel like they have a great coach. I'm a big fan of Brad Stevens, and I know Gordon Hayward is gone, but I feel like he wasn't a huge contributor for them last season. I mean, I don't know. I know Connor's still mad at the Hornets for that long-term signing of him. So I don't think the Celtics are going to miss him too much. I still think the Celtics are a very capable team. I know they fell in the playoffs last year to Miami, but I think the Celtics can get it done, but they're not going to beat the Nets, though.
Yeah, I feel like I've been reminded of that Gordon Hayward thing a little bit too much.
I'm
trying to get it out of my head because even though I'm gonna have to deal with it when the season starts. But so yeah, I'm the same as the the other two guys. I've got the Nets in the Eastern Conference Finals. I mean, pretty sure almost everybody would have them in this spot. Maybe not everybody has them winning, but they'd have them in this spot. I mean, it's just we already knew this last season that with Kevin Durant and Kyrie that, yeah, they're going to have an off year, this season. But next season, when they're back healthy, they're going to be the team to beat. And like the guy said, I was really impressed with how they played in the bubble. They certainly did more damage to the Bucks than I thought anybody thought they would. I think that was in the game that they played against them. Like, they beat the Bucks, which no one thought was going to, because this was also at the beginning of the bubble when the Nets beat them. It wasn't like towards the end when all the teams were resting their starters and didn't really care anymore. This was at the beginning of the bubble, and they really shut down the Bucks. So along with that supporting cast, then obviously Kyrie and Kevin Durant, you can't go wrong with those two. So I think they're going to win. And as I mentioned earlier, I think the Bucks are going to make the Eastern Conference Finals. Like I said, I think the Heat just kind of had a Cinderella run, and I think the Celtics just kind of tend to choke in these situations. I think it was really theirs for the taking this past season, especially with the Bucks getting knocked out by the Heat. It was theirs for the taking in that series against the Heat, and they blew it. So I am going to go with the Bucks. I think Giannis is going to want to really do something to prove that he can be at least a good playoff asset, because he's shown that he's a good regular season asset, but I think he wants to do something to show that he's a good playoff asset. And I think the Bucks learned a lot in the just throughout the bubble and in the playoffs, just okay, we need to really start doing different things. We can't just give it to Giannis every possession and hope that we're going to win. So I think they're going to fix those mistakes, but not enough to overcome the Nets.
So that's our Eastern Conference predictions. And really quickly before we end the show, we will talk about the regular season MVP, because that's a big award. And we're bringing Nate on for this topic as well. So Nate's going to get some action here in this segment. But it was funny. We are split on this. Eric and I, this is if you for Around the Shield, draw the line and pick a side. This is what it looks like here. Eric and I have picked Luka Doncic to be the MVP, and Connor and Nate both have Kevin Durant as the MVP, which both good choices. So Eric and I will speak for Luka. He'll feed. I'll start, and then Eric can feed off what I say, and then Connor can do the same with Nate for Kevin Durant. So I think Luka's going to win just because of the offensive numbers that he puts up. They're gaudy numbers, and the whole Mavericks system is no defense, all offense, kind of like Houston. So I think Luka's also got parts to his game that Harden doesn't, with passing the ball. Yeah, I see a lot of highlight plays where he has a no-look assist. He just seems to be more the only option than some of the other contenders on this list. I think he is 100% the number one person on this team. Only other person I can think of that's his role would be Dame or Giannis, with maybe fringe all-star teammates, but no real all-NBA players on their team like Kyrie and Kevin Durant. in last year with Russ and Harden. But
LeBron and AD.
Yeah, LeBron and AD. So the fact that he's the guy on the Mavericks moves him up on my list, and I think the Mavericks are also going to have a really good season. We'll talk about them in the Western Conference part, but the Mavericks, I think, have a good year. I think Luka puts up all the offensive numbers anyone could dream of. Also, Giannis has a disadvantage that he's a two-time winner, so he's going to have to even improve on what he did to get the award again. So benefit of the doubt should go to Luka, and he seems to be like the NBA's new favorite player, maybe the next LeBron. So he'll get some respect there from that. But Eric, what else do you want to add on to all the reasons that I just made?
Yeah, I mean, you touched on it for the most part, and especially just with the stats he's going to put up. I mean, he's going to be close to the Russell Westbrook territory of a couple seasons ago. Like, he's probably going to average a triple-double or near a triple-double, probably 38-8 or something like that. And lately, these last few years, the MVP award has seemed to be based a lot off of stats more than anything else. So I'm pretty sure he's going to get it because of that. I don't necessarily think he is the most valuable player in the NBA, but I do think he's going to win the award because of the ungodly numbers he's going to get.
Okay, so let's hear about Kevin Durant's chances, though, because that's who Connor and Nate both have.
Yeah, I definitely had a very hard time picking the MVP this year. Last year, I was pretty set in my mind that I was going to be honest, but this time around, I mean, I guess I went through a lot of choices. I think my first instinct was to take Anthony Davis, but in my mind, again, I feel like even though I feel like LeBron's not going to do as well this season as he did last season, I feel like they're still going to cancel each other out because they both pretty much play on the same level. I did consider Luka Doncic. Well, and I definitely think he's going to be second place. He was my second choice. And then I actually did consider Giannis again, but like Zach said, it's pretty impossible for anyone to win an MVP award 3 times in a row. So not looking that way. But with Kevin Durant, I feel like he's got this tandem with Kyrie Irving, but I think a lot of people have forgotten how good of a player he actually is, just given the fact that he was absent during the Warriors finals run against the Raptors because of his injury. And then obviously he missed all of last season, but Kevin Durant is definitely, I know this is a long time ago when we did this episode, but back in the midst of the pandemic, when there was no sports going on, we actually did a top 10 list of top 10 players, who we think are the best players in the NBA right now. And Kevin Durant was in the top 3 on all of our lists. So I definitely think Kevin Durant is, he's going to come back and he's going to look like his old self. He's had a lot of time to recover now. Obviously, Achilles injuries are bad, but I think he's going to look like his old self, and he's going to be the one carrying this team. Because I feel like Kyrie, he's obviously a good player, and he's going to make some All-Star games, but I just don't think Kyrie is the player he used to be back when he was in Cleveland with LeBron. So I think Kevin Durant really is going to emerge as the number one, true number one player on this team, unlike, with Harden and Russ last year, or LeBron and AD last year and this year. So that's why I've got Kevin Durant as the MVP this year. And also because I think the Nets are going to go really far. So, and I think they're probably going to end up being the 1 seed in the East this season, whereas I don't think the Mavericks are going to be the 1 seed in the West. So I think they're probably going to end up being in the middle, which is going to hurt Doncic's chances.
Yes.
Okay, Nate. I was gonna say, Nate. Do you want to add? Sorry, I jumped in. Nate, you can add on as much as you want.
Sure. Yeah. I'll keep it short, but yeah, I definitely had a little bit of a tricky time trying to figure out who could be the MVP this year for the NBA. These were pretty much my 2 choices earlier between Doncic and KD, just because I didn't really see logically who else really had a good shot this year. Obviously, they're not going to give it to Giannis again, even if he has a great season. And LeBron kind of, well, he could be great, but the standards for him to win MVP again, I feel like he'd have to put up some crazy numbers. So I think KD's in a good spot. Like the reasons that Connor mentioned. He just, I think he will carry the Nets this year, and having a guy like Kyrie at point guard is obviously good. He's a good distributor, I think, and having him as a running mate, they seem to be good friends. So hopefully they'll have a better relationship than what kind of came out about Kyrie at the end of his time in Boston. So I think he's in a good spot this year, and I think it helps MVP voting really. I feel like is influenced by storylines, and I think it's a great story that KD's coming back from his injury, and if he comes back like the KD from 4 years ago in his prime and really shows out again, I think he's got a good leg up there as far as winning over voters. So I'd like him to win it if he stays healthy.
Yeah, definitely. I would. I'm still a fan of KD. Unlike Eric, I didn't have a rooting interest with the Thunder before he was traded. So I've always maintained a good relationship with KD.
I'm on Eric's side, just to mention that.
Okay.
Just because I mean, I didn't exactly have the rooting interest with the Thunder, but I just feel like him going to the Warriors was just in the words of Eric, that's such a trashy move right there.
Trashy move. Man.
Yeah, but
Luka Doncic is going to win the MVP for 2 words: triple double.
Oh, I know how much Eric hates those.
He's gonna get the triple double, and he's gonna get all the rebounds and the assists.
Well, Eric, why didn't you pick Karl Anthony Towns? Because he can shoot the 3-pointer.
He ain't gonna get no triple double though.
I think we know.
Don't get me wrong though. Don't get me wrong. Karl Anthony Towns has a good 3-pointer.
Before we end the episode, I think we know now what's going to be in the episode promo tweet for a 1-minute clip. You just provided it, Eric. Thanks. All right, guys. Well, that's going to wrap this episode up. Stay tuned. We're going to be coming back next week. I think with the way the calendar is, we're going to be talking some college football next week, right, Connor? Is that
yes, sir. We're gonna talk about the college football playoff, because after this week we're going to be right before the conference championships. So definitely, we haven't talked about college as much this year just because it's been such a ridiculous. It's just been like the craziest season I've ever seen for any sport. So, but we are going to talk about it. We still watch college football.
Yep. Yeah. So I was just making sure that's next week and talk about the Western Conference as well. So stay tuned for that, and remember, be clutch.
Bye.
See ya.
Hey.